It's 2:13 in the morning, and the warehouse air is cold enough to sting your knuckles. Your net worth is almost exactly zero. In one pocket sits a late electricity bill. In the other is a folded sheet with 8 empty boxes. The first says Paycheck. The last says 500 million. It looks ridiculous. Maybe it is. But every pallet moving past contains something most people never notice: margin, payment terms, inventory turns, and a business somebody owns. 30 years later, 7 companies will sit beneath one holding company. Only one of those 8 levels will make the whole structure real. It isn't the last one. Right now, the thermal printer keeps coughing out shipping labels. Each one comes out warm before turning cold in your hand. Forklift alarms echo between steel racks. Cardboard dust settles into the seams of your jacket. The pay is $12.40 an hour. Enough to keep moving. Not enough to feel safe. Maybe your parents crossed an ocean before you were born. Maybe they only crossed a county line looking for steadier work. Either way, money was never discussed as something that could build. It paid rent, covered groceries, kept the lights on. Then it disappeared. That's how a paycheck feels at this level. Temporary. Necessary. Already spoken for. Small businesses currently employ almost 46% of America's private sector workers. Most of those workers never see the ownership layer above their jobs. Neither do you. Not yet. Then a shipment arrives in the wrong bay. It's 12 cases of disposable medical tubing from a supplier, 3 states away. The packing slip shows one number. The invoice clipped behind it shows another. The gap is bigger than expected. Not all profit, of course. There's freight, storage, spoilage, insurance, and the cost of waiting to get paid. Still, something changes. For the first time, the boxes don't look like boxes. They look like cash moving through a system. The late electricity bill remains in your pocket. So does the folded page. But before sunrise, the first empty box gets a new word. Not business, not company, notice. Because the first level begins before ownership. It begins when ordinary things stop looking ordinary. And one misdelivered invoice is about to teach you more than that month's paycheck ever could. The break room smells like burnt coffee and disinfectant. A vending machine hums beside the table. That supplier invoice lies flat beneath your palm. The warehouse paid one price. The hospital will pay another. At first, the difference looks like easy money. Then the receiving manager walks past and laughs. Looks good until you count everything between those 2 numbers. He doesn't explain. So the counting starts without him. A damaged case gets rejected. Another shipment sits for 37 days before the customer pays. A driver works overtime because the order arrived late. One missing signature delays an invoice for another week. The margin keeps shrinking, but it doesn't disappear. That matters. Over the next 2 years, a cheap notebook fills with observations. Which products move every week? Which customers order before inventory runs low? Who pays in 15 days? Who takes 60? Nobody asked for this notebook. Nobody at work knows it exists. Maybe it's ambition. Or maybe counting feels safer than hoping the next raise will fix everything. Every few Thursdays, a man named Mr. Alvarez arrives with packaging supplies. He's in his early 60s. Paper dust sits permanently in the folds of his sleeves. His company sells cartons, protective foam, and shipping labels. Nothing impressive. Nothing anybody brags about at dinner. But Mr. Alvarez knows exactly how long every product can sit before it becomes a problem. He knows which customer pays late but always pays. He knows that a dull product can be valuable when people keep needing it. One afternoon, he notices the notebook. You planning to take somebody's job? No! The answer comes too quickly. He smiles. Good! Jobs get tired. Then he taps the invoice. Systems don't. That sentence follows you home. Soon, a binder appears on the kitchen table. The cover says, Holdings. Inside are formation documents, diagrams, and notes copied from library books. It feels important. Official, even. But the binder owns nothing. It produces nothing. It doesn't have a customer. A legal structure can hold value. It can't create value by itself. 4 months later, Mr. Alvarez calls during dinner. He wants to meet before your next shift. Not at his office. At a 24-hour diner near the interstate. The first level isn't owning a company. It's noticing what everyone else walks past. The question is why a business owner would call a warehouse clerk with almost no money. The diner booth is cracked near the window. Mr. Alvarez places a manila folder beside the sugar dispenser. Then he orders decaf and says nothing for almost a minute. His packaging company is for sale. Revenue is steady. The customers are old. The warehouse lease is cheap. The bookkeeping looks like 3 people argued over the same spreadsheet. Nobody wants it. Strategic buyers say it's too small. Local competitors only want the customer list. His children have their own careers. Then he gives you the price. $620,000. The coffee cup stops halfway to your mouth. By then, 6 years of night shifts have produced $41,600 in savings. There's no hidden inheritance, no partner waiting outside, no pile of family money. Mr. Alvarez isn't offering a gift either. He needs a buyer. The business needs a transition, and seller financing gives him a way to get both. The final structure is ugly, but workable. Your savings cover the initial equity. A bank finances part of the purchase. Mr. Alvarez carries a seller note. He keeps 30% while the customers adjust. Everything is secured by something. The assets, the receivables, the company, your guarantee, especially your guarantee. Federal labor data shows only about 1/3 of establishments from one 2013 cohort survived an entire decade. That number feels different when payroll will soon carry your name. The deal closes on a Monday. No photographer comes. There's no ribbon. A key ring slides across a scratched desk. Half the keys aren't labeled. On Tuesday, a customer threatens to leave. On Wednesday, a delivery truck won't start. By Friday, 3 employees have asked whether their jobs are safe. The first year produces about $138,000 before debt obligations. It sounds substantial until every claim on the money arrives. Loan payments, seller payments, inventory, insurance, payroll, then taxes. The company doesn't make you rich. It barely gives you room to breathe. But it pays its bills. It pays Mr. Alvarez. And, slowly, it begins paying for the debt used to buy it. That's the proof. A small machine can carry part of its own purchase price. If you want the real mechanics of money without the gloss, subscribe. The next decision is quieter. Profit can improve your lifestyle. Or it can become the first dollar owned by the next business. 3 years later, the office still smells like paper dust. A space heater rattles beneath the desk. The company is healthier now. Not effortless, just less fragile. Debt has fallen. Customer concentration is lower. A cash reserve finally covers several months of payroll. The old car remains in the parking lot. Its passenger window needs help closing when the weather turns cold. Maybe replacing it would be reasonable. Maybe nobody would question it. But a different opportunity has appeared. A label converter 40 miles away is losing its founder. The company prints industrial labels for many of the same customers already buying packaging. Its equipment is useful. Its sales process isn't. The asking price is $1,800,000. This time, the money doesn't begin entirely with your paycheck. Some comes from retained earnings inside the first company. Some comes from a new loan. The seller accepts a smaller note. The rest comes from cash you refuse to pull out. The second company changes the math. Now one set of cash flows can help create another. That doesn't mean draining the first business. Its employees still need payroll. Its customers still need inventory. The holding structure creates boundaries. Each operating company keeps separate books, obligations, and managers. Above them sits a small ownership company. Its job isn't to sell boxes or print labels. Its job is to decide where capital goes next. Renee Brooks draws the structure on a yellow legal pad. She's a CPA with square glasses and no patience for dramatic language. When you call it the beginning of an empire, she looks up slowly. Let's call it a place where cash gets assigned. Fair enough. The label company keeps its name. The packaging company keeps its customers. Shared purchasing lowers material costs. The same salespeople can make introductions without forcing the companies together. For the first time, growth doesn't require starting from nothing. One operating business supports another, not recklessly, not automatically, but deliberately. The binder marked Holdings returns to the kitchen table. It's thicker now. Still, the paper isn't the important part. The cash flows beneath it are. Then orders begin slowing. One major customer stretches payment from 30 days to 74. Another disappears after an acquisition. Both companies need cash during the same month. The bank requests updated numbers. Renee reads the email twice. Then she places the legal pad face down. The structure has finally learned how to grow. Now the next level will test whether it knows how to survive. The bank's email arrives at 6:07 on a Friday morning. Rain taps against the office window. A fluorescent tube flickers above Renee's empty chair. The message requests updated cash flow projections, receivables, reports, and loan balances. Nothing has technically gone wrong yet. That's what makes it worse. Both operating companies have entered the month with less cash than expected. One customer owes nearly $780,000. Another has filed for bankruptcy. The payroll file must clear before midnight. A third company now sits beneath the holding structure. It makes protective foam for industrial shipments. The acquisition looked safe when customer orders were growing. Now its largest contract is gone. Every company needs help at once. The old instinct says to move money until nobody feels the pain. Cover one shortage. Delay another payment. Keep every door open. Maybe that instinct once kept the lights on at home. Or maybe losing anything still feels too much like returning to zero. Renee arrives carrying 2 coffees and a yellow legal pad. She separates the companies into 3 columns. The packaging distributor remains profitable. The label operation has a temporary receivables problem. The foam company is losing money on almost every order. More revenue won't repair it. Keeping that company alive would put the healthy businesses at risk. The system hasn't failed. One piece inside it has. That difference doesn't make the decision easier. 22 people work inside the foam facility. Some have children. Some have mortgages. One employee asks whether the closure is his fault. It isn't. The market changed. The original assumptions no longer hold. The holding company funds severance, health coverage, and an orderly shutdown. Equipment is sold. Customers are transferred where possible. The loss reaches $420,000. That night, your hands shake while opening the banking app. There's enough money for breakfast. There has been enough for years. Still, the cheaper meal wins. The nervous system hasn't caught up with the balance sheet. A company can survive a loss on paper. The body remembers every month when one bill could ruin everything. By spring, the 2 remaining operations have stabilized. Payroll clears. The bank steps back. Nobody celebrates. A closed building sits behind a locked gate, holding the cost of the lesson. If the structure survived without saving every piece, what exactly were you building? The businesses? Or the ability to choose? The next office has no sign near the road. Inside, 4 desks sit beneath soft fluorescent light. Phones ring quietly. A printer feeds invoices into a gray plastic tray. This becomes the first shared services team. Renee oversees finance. Another employee handles insurance and payroll. A purchasing manager compares material costs across the operating companies. None of them sells a box. None prints a label. Customers will never know their names. Yet this small office changes how every company works. America now has more than 36 million small businesses. Most stay small because the founder remains trapped inside every decision. An employee needs approval. A truck needs replacing. A customer demands different terms. The owner becomes the bridge between everything. That bridge eventually becomes a ceiling. The holding company needs a different design. Operators receive clear budgets and authority. Each business keeps its customers, culture, and daily decisions. Shared services handles the work that improves with scale. Insurance, accounting, recruiting, technology, capital planning. Over the following decade, 3 more companies joined the group: a specialty shipping supplier, a warehouse safety distributor, a regional maker of industrial labels. Each acquisition is unremarkable by itself. Together, they deepen the same customer relationships. Mr. Alvarez visits after his final seller note payment clears. The check sits inside a plain envelope. No bonus is hidden behind it. No secret inheritance appears. Every dollar promised in the diner has now been paid. He turns the check over once. Then he says, "Guess you really bought the place." That afternoon, the original misdirection finally disappears. Mr. Alvarez opened a door because he needed a buyer. Walking through it still required years of risk. A professional operator now runs the first packaging company. On her first Monday, the phone beside your bed stays silent. At 7:30, nothing happens. At 8:15, still nothing. The quiet feels wrong. For years, usefulness meant being the person everyone called. Now, competence looks like nobody needing to call. Then Renee forwards an email marked Independent Valuation Request. The subject line sounds like a sale. It isn't. The bank wants a consolidated review. The insurer wants updated ownership values. For the first time, outsiders will measure the group as one system. But the numbers still won't answer the question opened on that freezing receiving dock. One more level has to do that. The 7th acquisition closes at 10:08 on a Thursday morning. You don't visit its loading dock that week. No unfamiliar keys land on the desk. No employee waits to ask whether the new owner will cut jobs. The operating teams found the company. They studied its customers. Renee's group tested the debt and cash requirements. Managers from 2 subsidiaries inspected the inventory. The holding company supplied the equity. A bank financed the remaining purchase price using the group's combined results. This time, no single operating company carries the entire risk. No personal paycheck starts the process. And no founder stands between every decision. The confirmation appears on a laptop beside a thermal label printer. A short line says the funds have cleared. No exclamation point. The printer clicks. A warm label slides into the tray. For a moment, the warehouse returns. Cold air, cardboard dust, forklift alarms beyond the steel racks. Look at the transaction again. The 7th company wasn't bought by a night shift paycheck. It was bought by cash flows created across the other companies. Operators chose it. A central team financed it. The businesses will serve one another without being forced into the same identity. That's when the answer becomes visible. The holding company became real when one business could help buy the next. And none of them needed your hands on the wheel. Not when the formation documents were filed. Not when the first key ring crossed the diner table. Not when the word holdings appeared on a binder. Those were containers. This is the mechanism. The company can now find, finance, and operate its next asset without rebuilding itself from zero. The system isn't independent of people. It's independent of one person. That distinction changes everything. 3 decades earlier, ownership meant answering every call. At this level, ownership means building people and boundaries strong enough to let the phone stay quiet. The original macro loop closes without applause. One ordinary company learned to create another. Then the group learned how to repeat the act. The final number is coming, but it won't mean what the folded sheet once promised. The valuation email arrives on a Wednesday afternoon. A half-eaten sandwich rests beside the keyboard. The message contains 4 paragraphs and an attached spreadsheet. 7 operating companies now generate roughly $68 million in annual earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. The valuation firm applies a blended multiple. The resulting enterprise value is approximately $503 million. That isn't $503 million in a checking account. The number includes debt. It includes working capital requirements. It includes minority shareholders and future tax obligations. After roughly $96 million of net debt, the implied equity value is much lower. Your controlling ownership represents only part of that equity. And none of it becomes spendable without changing the system that created it, so the email stays open for less than a minute. No company is sold, no champagne appears. The same operators arrive at work the next morning. Customers place the same ordinary orders. A warehouse employee replaces a damaged shipping label. Someone complains about the coffee. The number changes almost nothing about Thursday. That's the final misdirection. $500 million sounds like an ending. Inside a holding company, it's only a snapshot. A temporary price placed on businesses that must keep serving customers after the spreadsheet closes. That evening, the old binder comes down from a shelf. The first pages contain formation documents with clean signatures and no revenue. Behind them sits the folded sheet from the night shift. 8 boxes. The first still says Paycheck. The last says 500 million. A faded shipping label rests between the pages. The paper no longer feels like a prediction. It feels like evidence. The fortune wasn't hiding inside one brilliant acquisition. It wasn't handed over by Mr. Alvarez. And it didn't appear because a lawyer created the right entity. It came from a repeating act. Keep the useful business. Protect its cash flow. Give good operators room. Move capital toward the next durable opportunity. Then survive long enough for the structure to become visible. 500 million wasn't the level where you finally became rich. It was the level where 30 years of ownership finally made a sound. So look at the first box on your own folded page. What are you building that could someday keep working after your hands leave the wheel?